And what is going on, everyone? And welcome to another special edition of Houston Texans football on Bleacher Report. I am one part of your show, Ruben Calavillo. You can find me on YouTube, 713 Houston Sportcast. We pop right up. The man with me, Harley Dugan at TheLead _Houston. First of all, Pops, how's it going?
Doing great, man. Obviously, we're getting near closer and closer to the draft. We're only like
Yeah,
a month and a few weeks away from it, and it doesn't even feel like it. But free agency is really
winding
starting to
down.
lose its steam a little bit in the NFL.
Mhm.
We got a move that just happened a few minutes ago that affects the Houston Texans, and we'll see what else the Texans can do. They made a few moves as well yesterday, and we'll see, or 2 days ago,
Yeah.
and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, man. We just want to give a shout out to Bleach Report allowing us to come on here, talk Houston Texans football. Always a big shout out to the man upstairs. So you said one news that impacts the Houston Texans, and I think you're talking about wide receiver Cooper Kupp signing with the Seattle Seahawks. I believe it was 3 years, $45 million. The Houston Texans weren't paying that. We talked about Cooper Kupp potentially trading for him or maybe taking a stab when he hit free agency. But at that price, man, all power to Cooper Kupp. Happy that he's in a situation where he wants to be up there in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, he's returning home. He went to Eastern Washington University, so that's where he's from. So, hey, congrats to him. You got paid 15 M's for
Mm.
a guy that's highly injury prone. Like, I wouldn't have done that. I would have gave him 10. I would have gave him up to 12 million. That's what I would have gave him. But man, 15, sorry, man. That's a little bit stretching it right there. Um, the pipe dream about Cooper Kupp never really made a lot of sense to me. I
Mm.
mean, at the beginning of free agency, yes, but where we
Especially
currently
when they
are
came.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, I get the implication there, but where we currently are now as a franchise with the signings and the
Mhm.
trades and everything, like it didn't make no sense. I thought Ian Rappaport's report there saying that the Texans could be one of the teams in on Cooper Kupp. I thought that was false. Like
Mm.
again, I thought it was just like what you're saying. Just because we have Nick Caley, that was one of the drawn implications that we were going to grab Cooper Kupp. Never saw it happening.
Yeah, so now the Houston Texans, I mean, as you mentioned, free agency is losing its steam. In regards to the Houston Texans, they did make one move. I think it was either earlier this morning or yesterday,
Mhm.
and that was the restructuring of Christian Kirk's contract, freeing up $12 million worth of cap space. Now, could that be used for the rookie contracts? Yes. Could that be used for a Derek Stingley contract extension? Absolutely. But what about another move, Harley? Do you think that there is something else General Manager Nick Caserio could do to bring talent to the Houston Texans roster? I mean, I wouldn't put him past them. We've seen him turn 2 7th-round picks into Joe Mixon, Christian Kirk. Hey, he just turned a 6th-round pick for CJ Gardner Johnson.
Yeah, it's crazy what Nick Casario has done with the day three picks and turning
Mhm.
them into good ball players. I mean, these are
Yeah.
just good football players that anybody would love to have on their team. But hey, I'll take it. I love the ideas. Um, when you restructure Christian Kirk, you freed up about $12 million. And yeah, some of that money is going to go to the guys that you traded for. Some of that's going to go to the guys you signed. And you also got to think about, you know, you also got to think about, must be a Browns fan.
No, you can't have a name like CJ for MVP and type that message. Come on, come on.
Come on, guys. Come on, man. Uh, and he made me lose my train of thought. But anyway, no, when you got guys like that you got to draft guys that's
Mhm.
going to fill up some of the cap space as well. But ultimately, the Texans are still in to make another move,
Mm,
and they got another move in them. Now, yeah, they got to maybe extend Daniel Hunter
I
and
would love that.
maybe make a maybe make that tough decision of cutting Danico Autry. I hate to do that. I hate to do that, but if it's for whatever's best for business, and
Okay,
if
Triple H.
that's what's best for business, then will go with it. But I mean, if Danico Autry translates to an offensive line signing, then yeah, I would not mind it.
Mm.
I'll take it. You know, it is what it is. But I think the extension of Daniel Hunter can open up some more money. Yeah, you know, maybe a reunion is what we're looking for. And you know,
I
he
think I
posted an
figured it
IG
out.
video. He
Yeah,
posted an
yeah, I
IG
know
video.
exactly who you're talking about. Okay, go ahead.
He looked pretty good, man.
Not
Little
only did he
4 month
look
recovery.
good, but you
Looks
saw
solid.
what
Looks
color his
straight.
shorts were?
I'm just saying,
Red and blue.
the
I think you're talking
longer
about the same guy.
the longer he stays in free agency, the more beneficial this is for the Houston Texans.
Talk to me.
And if Stephon Diggs is a
Mm.
free agent as long as he can be, and the Houston Texans, you know, it irks him the way he ended his season here in Houston.
Absolutely.
That's definitely something that he's gonna want to definitely gonna have to want to repay that for the city of Houston. A Houstonian too, by the
Mhm.
way, a now Houstonian, and we know the players want him back. We've
We know
heard Joe
he wants
Mixon
to be back.
advocate for him. We know there is a connection there, more of a connection there, I would say, for Stephon Diggs to Houston than Cooper Kupp ever was to Houston. I'm just saying, if you got 10 M's and you can free it up, throw 10 M's at Stephon Diggs, give him a little 1 year deal, 1 year, $12 million. That's what I
Mm.
would do. I'd go no more. 1 year, 12 million. How you feeling?
Well, this is exactly what we talked about Stephon Diggs before we entered free agency. If the money makes sense, we know that he's probably going to want to get one of the final big paydays of his career. CJ for MVP says just draft Golden. Hey, I would absolutely
I
love that. He
don't disagree.
himself has shown
Don't
interest
disagree.
in the Texans, and I think Golden has made it known he wants to get drafted here. But with Stephon Diggs, hey, that shouldn't stop you from drafting in Matthew Golden. However, let me say this. We were talking about if the money makes sense for Stephon Diggs. And we saw the Baltimore Ravens make a move, bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. We saw the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, did they bring back Hollywood Brown?
Yes, they did. 1 year, $11 million.
Okay. That's okay. All right. That comment got me. Harley loves him some Will Fuller.
I love me some Will
Diggs
Fuller.
does make a lot of sense. And I'm not going to lie, that would excite me is seeing Stephon Diggs return to the Houston Texans, finishing up the story like Cody Rhodes did at
Mm.
last year's WrestleMania. I agree. If I'm Stephon Diggs, I am not happy whatsoever with what happened in Houston. When Nico Collins was out with his hamstring injury, you know who was the leading wide receiver? Stephon Diggs. That Patriots game was just cooking Christian Gonzalez. I wonder how healthy that knee is, but like you mentioned, he posted multiple IG reels of him running routes. Now it's not at 100%, but it does look good for Stephon Diggs. And like I mentioned, I saw that, those red and blue polo shorts, so maybe I'm digging too into it, but I would love if the Houston Texans brought back Stephon Diggs. And now your wide receiving core is
Mm.
Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Stephon Diggs, Braxton Berrios, Justin Watson, and whatever the hell you do in the NFL draft. Hey, give me a Josh Beck out of TCU.
I mean, see, that's what help was
Hey,
super
Mr. Handy
helpful.
knows ball. Kiki Kuti.
Mm. Hey man, Kiki
Hey,
QT,
hey,
he just fumbled another football, man. He just fumbled another one somewhere.
Mr. Handy, you know
Shout
ball.
out to Kiki QT. Shout out to Will Fuller. I know he just got injured because we mentioned his name. Uh, it would be great to see this happen. I would absolutely love this
Mhm.
actually if Stephon Diggs did come back to the Houston Texans. And yeah, I mean, the more you talk about it, the more you get excited. The intangibles he brought to this team
Mhm.
wasn't talked about enough. I thought Diggs was amazing for this Houston Texans locker room per se. And look, you mentioned he was a top dog when Nico Collins went out briefly, and Stephon Diggs is different. And you bring him back, the players again definitely are advocating for him. Yeah, like I mentioned, he is a current Houstonian, got himself a house, a crib here in Houston, loves the city of Houston. I mean, why not, man? We're gonna have Braxton Berrios with Alex Earl, and we're gonna have Cardi B right next to her with Stephon Diggs. Can
Yeah,
you dig it?
that's the only concern about Stephon Diggs is his recent nightlife. And if you read the reports, Stephon Diggs is crazy, but that should not surprise you, because if you go all the way back to that one moment when he was a Minnesota Viking and they asked which teammate would you not let date your sister, every one of those Minnesota Vikings said Stephon Diggs. Dude,
Mm,
I would be excited. I mean, it would be an 8, 9, 10 in terms of reaction. I would say the boys are getting back together, and I know CJ Stroud, most of all, will be ecstatic to have Stephon Diggs back. It'll be like a big energy moment. And I'll say this about Stephon Diggs. People immediately thought he was going to ruin this locker room.
yeah.
And he did anything but that. When we were there, Harley, at training camp, Bo Diggity, my guy, when
Oh,
we were there
diggity.
in the rain, who was the first player to tell the Houston Texans that what was on the field, wasn't good?
Yes, Stephon Diggs. He yelled at him. It was an omen, unfortunately, because the
Right.
offense wasn't playing good. That was an unfortunate omen that we did not recognize in training camp.
We just thought because of the rain, they looked a little sloppy. But
Yeah.
we saw Stephon Diggs work out with receivers after training camp and guys who didn't even make the 53-man roster, but he took the
Mhm.
time out of his day to work with them. You saw him on the sideline, not being a locker room cancer. The moment that he was, animated on the sideline, he was telling his offense to let's get it going. Dude, would
Yeah.
absolutely love this. I think it will be the cherry on top of Houston Texans free agency. Now you could go into the NFL draft thinking about, bolstering this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, if you grab the Stephon Diggs, you're going, okay, I got three legitimate wide receivers. Yes, Nico Collins misses a game here and there. Yes, Christian Kirk has missed injuries back to back years. And yes, Stephon Diggs, who's been an Iron Man for the majority of his career, just ended last year with a torn ACL. Yes, you're getting three wide receivers that have missed games of football, and some of them could be considered injury prone. And yes, it should not scare you away from still drafting a wide receiver, but that conversation could be happening later. All
Mhm.
right. The offensive line should be the priority, and the Houston Texans could go into the draft and double dip. I mean, we know Nick Casario is not afraid of trading up either. When you got four picks inside the top 100, that is a great thing for the Houston Texans. 25 right down to 58. It is not too bad for the
Mhm.
Texans. Nick Casario again could always trade up, whether it's up in the second round, using one of the third round picks. Like, there's many ways Nick Casario can manipulate his way back into the top 75 to top 60 players, and trying to himself to double dip and get himself another offensive lineman, or even if it's a receiver he likes, if he's drafted two O linemen and then he sees that, what, I'm just gonna go ahead and trade up for a Jaden Higgins out of
Mm.
Iowa State, or whoever else, Trey Harris, Savion Williams, Jack Beck, like you mentioned. Like, any of them guys I'd be happy with. The wide receiver group is definitely something you need to add into the draft. Again, Diggs doesn't shy you away from it, but O-line is definitely the carrying conversation for this team when it comes to the NFL draft.
No, it is a glaring need, and I've
Yeah.
mentioned this already. With the trade of Laramie Tunsil, I am very concerned for this offensive line. CJ Shaw was the most sacked, I'm sorry, second most sacked quarterback in the NFL, even with Laramie Tunsil, and now he is without. And this is the first time we'll have a new left tackle starting for the Houston Texans in about 8 years. It is going to be Titus Howard, from what Aaron Wilson reported. We
Hmm.
know Lakin Tomlinson is going to be the left guard. Jarrett or Juice at center. Yesterday, the Houston Texans made a trade with the Minnesota Vikings, and a late round draft pick got them Ed Ingram,
Mhm.
who started, I believe, 3.5 years for them until he was benched this season and was never seen again. I would say he was our Kenyon Green, like we traded away to the Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Minnesota Vikings gave us their version of Kenyon Green, but I will say, based off of his experience, I think he's your new starting right guard.
Yeah, I would say so. And I don't even think it's just experience. I just think you don't got nothing else. So on
Yeah.
paper, that is what you got, and it's what's currently constructed. So it is what it is. I mean, Ed Ingram, we can come up here and try to make excuses as much as we can. But at the end of the day, it's a body that can play the guard position, and it's something you needed. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah. Trading away Kenyon Green, we all knew Kenyon Green wasn't any good, but you hope Ed Ingram can do something for you. Even though when you look up anything statistically around him, he is right near the bottom of the pack with Kenyon Green. So it is what it is. He's a camp body. We'll see what happens. I'm not gonna trash him. I'm not gonna,
uh,
disrespect him or anything. I'm here with an open mind because the Houston Texans don't got nothing when it comes to the interior offensive line. I would give anybody a shot. Hell, that included
mhm.
Kenyon Green, because considering you had a new offensive lines coach, yes, I know he was here before, he was an assistant, but he had promotion at O lines coach, and you got Nick Caley. I give anybody a shot right now. And hey, you throw them all in the blender, you put that thing on, and you see who comes out as the best one available, and let's just see what happens. But
Mm,
obviously, like Aaron Wilson also pointed out a week ago now, the Houston Texans were going to attack the offensive line, but both with free agency as well as the NFL draft. So
mm.
we do know the Texans are going to be eyeing something on the interior, at least I would think so. Maybe they draft a tackle. Maybe they move Titus Howard to guard. Who knows? Who knows what they do? That's still not out of the realm either. Just because he said that Titus Howard's going to be the left tackle doesn't necessarily mean that's the bona fide statement. Like, things change from now all the way to April when the draft comes around.
I wanted to ask you about another Minnesota Viking that has
Mm,
become available, and that is Garrett Bradbury, their
okay.
center. Now, the Minnesota Vikings brought in Ryan Kelly and are opening up Garrett Bradbury to trade. If I was the Houston Texans, and Harley, we've had this conversation on Bleacher Report, we haven't had a solid center since Chris Myers.
Yeah.
30
Maybe
years
Ben
old.
Jones.
Okay, Ben. All right, I'll give you Ben Jones. I was so mad he went to Tennessee and had a pretty
Yeah,
solid
me too. Me
career.
too. I'd say Ben
But
Jones. I think
yeah,
that's respectable.
okay, yeah. All right. Shout out to Ben Jones, man, wherever he is.
Yeah.
But Garrett Bradbury, 30 years old, a veteran, definitely wasn't a weak spot in that offensive line. I mean, if we're trading 7 and 6 aways like candy for some impactful day one starters, why not do it with Garrett Bradbury and
Mhm.
work out Jared and Juice, as competition for the guard spot? Guard spot. Oh my God! And here is your, here's one of your most important parts of the interior of your entire offensive line, and that is Garrett Bradbury. And we know he's not the future, but it's just a band-aid over it until you could, find someone younger.
I don't disagree with this. I don't mind Garrett Bradbury. I don't mind the idea. You get
Mhm.
yourself a veteran center, and it's something you need because you don't have anything when it comes to veterans for this offensive line. Yeah, Titus Howard's been in the league a little bit. Lincoln Tomlinson is your newly acquired veteran, but other than that, I would like a guy like a Garrett Bradbury who has had success in his NFL career. And I mean, if the Houston Texans love themselves to trade a seventh or a sixth round pick for these guys before they get actually cut, I would not mind doing it with Gray or Bradbury. Now, yeah, does that present a situation with Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson? Yeah, I mean, both guys though are
I don't care.
also, I don't care either.
Okay.
But both guys are also guard centers,
Hmm.
and they could always move to the guard positions. And there's competition everywhere. Like, to me, nobody has a position locked for the offensive line. So I mean, Garrett Bradbury definitely is somebody the Houston Texans go after. He's worked with Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell was with the LA Rams, Sean McVay, Nick Caley. Like, I thought you were going to talk about Dalton Risner, who is a free agent
Oh,
right now, and I wouldn't mind that idea. I thought the Texans might look at the Vikings because of Dalton Risner, who is a free agent right now, because of those Nick Caley Rams, Sean McVay connections. Ultimately, I was not wrong because they still went to the Vikings, but it was for Ed Ingram. If it's for Garrett Bradbury, I'd be ecstatic.
yeah, I would love Garrett Bradbury. Dalton Risner is interesting because I will
Mm-hmm.
say this. Last season, we were talking about him and we were actually tagging
Mm-hmm.
him like, hey, what are
Yes.
you doing? Hey, do you want to be a Houston Texan? And multiple times he said yes. He said
Yes.
he'll play anywhere. And I have no doubt he's going to be that way again during this free agency period. Would not mind Dalton Risner, would absolutely be ecstatic for Garrett Bradbury. But if you had to choose between bringing back Stephon Diggs and bringing in Garrett Bradbury, which way are you leaning?
Mm.
Because both situations are not long term, and like you mentioned with Jared and Juice or center guards, they could always move back to center once Garrett Bradbury is not here. However, if you get Stephon Diggs back and he is fully healthy and you finally get to, and according to PFF, I think he was on track for another season, above, I think, high 80 in terms of receiving grade.
Mm.
What if you do get some fireworks with him in this new Nick Caley offense? I don't know, but if you're asking me, gun in my head, I'm sick and tired of seeing CJ Stroud run for his life. I would go Garrett Bradbury. But I wouldn't have my Stephon Diggs returning in that number one.
This is a tough one, and I'm going to go Stephon Diggs.
Oh, I like that.
I'm going to go Stephon Diggs.
Okay.
I'm going to go for the weapon. I'm going to go with somebody that has
You
a
trust in coaching
connection with
on the O
CJ
line.
Stroud.
Mm.
And yeah, sure, his recovery is already ahead of schedule. It looks like he's cutting, he's shifty. Like
Yeah,
it,
I did
he,
notice that.
he's putting weight on his knee. That's the biggest thing is he's putting weight on it, and that's what you like to see. And he looks back to his form. Look, I know you can easily say Garrett Bradbury, but I'm going, hey, even if I got Garrett Bradbury, I still got to draft offensive guards. Screw it.
Yeah.
Why not? And I also still don't think that move would happen about Garrett Bradbury because I think the Houston Texans at the end of the day are still very high on Juice Scruggs. They traded up for him.
Mhm.
Nick Casario talked in the podium a while ago and talked about when Scruggs was a guard,
Yeah, he's a
said
better
that he
center than
still
guard.
views him as a center. Now,
Mhm.
I know D'Amico Ryans is ultimately the guy that's going to place his guys wherever he sees fit, but that still can't go unnoticed either, that they still view Scruggs as a center. And now, without that responsibility of identifying the mic and protection sets, like all of that responsibility is now going to fall on CJ Stroud with Nick Caley. So maybe Drew Scruggs turns out to be going on the right track in terms of his ceiling for the Houston Texans.
Man, there's a lot of writing on Nick Caley being correct, the correct hire. And,
Yeah, I
Cole
know.
Popovich being the guy to not only run this offensive line, but be in charge of running game coordinating. But if it works out, Harley, if this offensive line somehow gets fixed, and here's the thing, if CJ Stroud goes from the second most sacked quarterback to the ninth or 10th, that's improvement.
Yeah.
And, the bar is very that low, ladies and gentlemen, about this offensive line. And we don't have a right to question Nick Casario anymore if he gets this correct.
Yeah, I mean, he has to get it correct. Like,
No
there is
choice.
a lot riding on the 25th pick in the draft. It pretty much feels like they're going to go offensive line. But the problem right now is you have to hit on these picks. You have to. Like, there is no sense of error when
Mhm.
it comes to 25 and 58 and the rest of these, at least the first four picks in the top 100. Like all of these guys have to be good players. At the very least, they have to be good. Like I don't need them to be great. I don't need them to be Hall of Famers. Sure, that would be amazing, but just give me good football players, and that's all I ask for Nick Caserio, and it has to happen. Like you can't have pick 25 and you pick Tyler Booker and he ends up being a bust. You can't have that happen.
That
That
RAS
would
score
suck.
scares me, dude. That RAS score scares me.
Everything about him is a bit worrisome because when you look at PFF, they were talking about, and I'm not even going into like details or analytics or anything. They're just talking film. They're talking ball actually, and they say that his film looked worse after his freshman year. Like it continued to look worse to them. Now, I didn't necessarily see that. I thought Tyler Booker strong at the point of attack, a big mauler. He's a big old dude. I think he's the offensive Will Anderson intangibles. I think that's a little overblown. I'm not going to go crazy about that. But I do say that it looks like his work ethic is high. It looks like he has a good character, and he was a captain at Alabama. That's a Power 5 school. And you do know the Texans, Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans,
Mhm.
like their Alabama guys.
You know, when you look at tackle in this drive, I think the two that are coming up for me a lot during these mock drafts on PFF and all that, Kelvin Banks
Okay.
and Josh Simmons.
Okay.
And I think those two realistically are in the range of 25. I think if you want anyone higher, you're going to have to make the move and trade up. And we've seen Nick Caserio time and time again go after his guy. Hey, how electric was it when we saw him trade up to 3 to select Will Anderson Jr. after we selected CJ Stroud? What a moment that was. But
Yeah.
now you have a glaring need at offensive line, and it is the tackle spot. It is the interior. And like Harley just says, you have to get this right because this is year 3 of CJ Stroud.
That
You
too.
don't want CJ Stroud running for his life again. You don't want him being the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So Nick Caserio, we are wishing you the very best as to fixing this offensive line. One thing that doesn't need fixing is this defense. And I
Uh-huh.
had this conundrum yesterday, and that was that the Houston Texans will have the best secondary in the NFL.
Okay.
They have the number one cornerback in Derek Stingley. Only had 5+ interceptions this year. Kamari Lassiter, their number 2 cornerback entering year 2, only had 3 INTs. Kalen Bullock, entering year 2, their young safety. What do you have, 4 or 5?
Kalen Bullock had 5.
5, only 5. And now you're adding in CJ Gardner Johnson, and he only had 6 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, I was going to have this conversation even without the addition of CJ Gardner Johnson as one of the best secondary units in the NFL. Now, with that addition and also adding in a healthy Jalen Petrie in this new star role, a Jimmy Ward, kind of playing second fiddle, not relying on him because we can't rely on him to be there every single Sunday. I really love this secondary, Harley, and I think it's going to be one of the reasons why this Houston Texans team goes far next year.
Yeah, I think you said it the best. I agree with you. I think it's the best secondary in football. I think you have the best defensive end group in football. And ultimately, I think the Houston Texans, as great as their defense was last year, I think this year it's about to take it to another level.
Mm,
And because one of the guys we never got to see play this year, Christian Harris, is going to be
mm,
back fully healthy. And the last time we saw him playing at his potential, he was taking out Lamar Jackson in the Baltimore Ravens game. He was pick sixing in the wild card game against Joe Flacco. He was amazing. He was playing at a Pro Bowl, maybe even an all pro level. That's how
mm.
great he was. We had Colts fans in week 18 going, who is this guy? Where was he last time we were playing him? He is everywhere. And I think that is somebody that nobody has been talking about for this defense. I think the Houston Texans, and I would put money on it, I think the Houston Texans have the best defense in football.
Mm. We are going to end it at that, ladies and gentlemen. The Houston Texans, according to Harley, and you know what, myself, will have the best defense in the NFL in 2025. Guys, we will see you on Monday, same time, same place, same channel to talk about whatever the hell this Houston Texans team did over the weekend. But one thing you got to do is do me and Harley in favor. Have a safe weekend and have a blessed weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday.